Yeah. So first things first, let's look at what I have shared. And what I have shared on my screen is, if you can see the picture, let me see if I can share screen. Share screen. Right. So on this, what I have done is I have shared with you a few headlines, right? These are just 4 headlines. Let's look at non-fiction. We have done a lot of fiction so far. Let's look at non-fiction. So these are 4 headlines. One of them comes in the Tehran Times headlines, and the other is the Los Angeles Times headlines. These are taken in the period of around 2012. And just look at them and tell me whether there is certain things that strikes you as different. So the first one, I'm going to give you the time to look at. The first one under Tehran Times headline says, Obama's flip-flop destroys trust. Sarif. The corresponding headline for that in Los Angeles Times headlines was, US not being played by Iran on nuclear issue, Kerry insists. Do you think they are very differently positioned? Do they write differently based on that?
Yes, ma'am.
So, why do you think and how do you think this is biased?
I think going by the newspapers, Tehran Times is obviously an Iranian newspaper, and they are representing their government in the best light possible. And that's the same with Los Angeles Times. Even though they're talking about the
Right?
same issue, they are taking very different approaches to it.
Right. So if you look at the third one, it says claim of arrest of Iranian spy shows Israel's desperation. And the third one, which is corresponding in Los Angeles, is Netanyahu heads to US to tell the truth on Iran. And tell the truth is put in very interestingly in quotation marks, but it nevertheless is a slant that is given to the news based on the bias of the culture that one belongs to. Yeah, someone was trying to say something. Please go ahead. Is someone trying to say something? So, these are examples of how you can take biases and explain them. These are also the way that you can mm, look at screens. You can focus on examples and try and analyze how those examples work. You can take up a newspaper headline and try and analyze that. So I'm going to try and do today's newspaper. Yeah, if you can mute, it would be good. Right. So I'm going to try and take today's newspaper and let's analyze any one. Yeah. Let's just, okay, I'll just share the screen again. So I'm going to try and do this. There is a picture here, and then there is the statement. Amid prevalent chaos and uncertainty over access to essential services and commodities during the lockdown, we bring you the latest updates from Chennai. Do you think the reporter is neutral?
No, I don't think so.
Do you
Because
think that the. Mhm. Tell me.
no, amid prevalent chaos and uncertainty, it it sort of gives an idea of not really being in good times. So I would say he's sort of biased.
Mhm. And do you think that a reporter's job is to be biased?
No.
So that is one other element that comes in, when we are talking about academic writing, when we talk of ethnographic studies, these are elements of where our biases are reflected in the way we write. So, if I was an ethnographic researcher who is writing about what I am observing, and I start my entire sentence with, amid the kind of chaos that I was witnessing, I tried to be unbiased. I was like, but you already have made a judgment. So you're not unbiased. And that is a kind of thing that you have to be aware of. Reflecting on text basically is asking you to become aware of such structures. Can you think of how we can rewrite this sentence to enable it to seem that it is unbiased? At least to seem that it is unbiased. Can we delete something? What should we delete? What will we write? Just this one sentence. Amid prevalent chaos and uncertainty over access to essential services and commodities. I'm also writing it out for y'all. Sorry. Shoot. Why doesn't it allow me to do it? Okay, it doesn't allow me to do that, but if you can just take this time and say how you will rewrite this sentence, just this one sentence. It is biased, so now you need to make it unbiased. You can delete things, you can add things, but you need to make it unbiased. Has anyone been chatting, typing? If that is the case, let me just see. Uh, has anyone been chatting? I'm sorry, I can't see that here.
Yes, ma'am.
You have been typing it in? Okay. Let me see. We bring you the latest updates of lockdown. Yes, Marisa, that's right. You can do it that way. We bring you the latest updates on lockdown from Chennai. So you delete almost all of it. We bring you the latest updates on essential services and commodities during the lockdown. Uh, from Chennai, we bring you the latest updates on essential services, on access to essential services and commodities. Even that can be there. What is not allowed is to write prevalent chaos and uncertainty. What you can add if you were writing is to add by saying, uh, people perceive this to have the situation to be chaotic and uncertain, or largely people's reporting of commentary on this has been to report it as chaos and uncertainty, but it is a third person's view and that must be highlighted. And your own personal view should just have, I mean, your own personal writing should just have um, these elements of looking at what is factual, right? So, this is the kind of exercise that you were being asked to do in identifying biases, which was the first, mini assignment. The second one was to take up a piece of paper, and you have time, of course, to do them, and take up a piece of writing and reflect on the kinds of writing that it is. Is it fitting the genre? Is it rooted in the culture? So, for instance, if we take up those two instances that I started off with today, which is newspaper headlines, Tehran newspaper wanted to make sure that Tehran was reflected in a good light. Why? Why should Iranian newspaper want it to seem like Iran is doing well? Similarly, the US paper was reflecting US in a better light. But why should it be there?
Might be considering the audience or the
Mhm.
readers preference, giving preference to the readers, so they might be
Yes.
wanting to give a positive impact for that in their newses.
So, you are right. I understand my audience, and I'm writing to my audience in writing to them in a way that should appeal to them. That's what you're saying. You're saying that it should be something that they like reading. The second part of that analysis that you would have to do is to say, is that its function? When I'm writing a novel, maybe my job is to try and attract the audience. When I'm writing a piece of fiction, it is my job. When I'm trying to sell a product, when I'm trying to make an advertisement, my job is to try and attract my audience. Is the job of a newspaper to attract its audience, to make its audience feel good, or is it to inform the audience?
That the news means to give information, but in actually it doesn't happen.
Yes. Right.
It's to
So, one,
inform the
yeah,
audience better. Ma'am,
yeah,
and I also feel that newspapers have a particular place that they set aside for opinions, editorials.
opinion
So
edit.
it's
Yes.
obvious that that is a place where they can give their own thoughts, while the other news should be like completely void of biases and should be factual.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with you on that. But the fact is, and when you're reflecting on these analysis, the reason I am stating all of this is that you realize that you will have these problems in coming up with writing. You will come up with these kinds of pieces of advertisement, of media, of different pieces which have different purposes, right? So, what I'm asking you to do is also to think about how is the purpose linked. So, one is what is the message? I'm typing it out so that we also have something that can work through. What is the message? Who is the audience? Think about that. Is the audience going to like what I'm writing? So, who is the audience? Is the audience being appealed to? You know, do I use correct language? Do I use the proper mechanisms to try and write to them? But then, what is the purpose of my writing? That is the other aspect. Uh, and is that purpose being solved? Am I being responsible? Is the piece of writing uh, being responsible in fulfilling its function? So these are questions that you will have to ask when you are analyzing uh, the text that you select. So it could be that the text is supposed to talk about fiction, and then that is to appeal the audience. And maybe it is a horror story, and I'm supposed to appeal to people who like horror stories. And there'll be others who don't like horror stories, but I don't care about them. That's my job. My job is to write a story. My job is to just tell a story. My job is to write a poem. My job is to express myself. If that is what it is, then it is fine. Fiction does not actually have. What is the purpose of fiction?
I think there can be multiple purposes. Uh, for me, if I am I can read for pleasure. I
Mm-hmm.
can also read to improve my language.
Mm-hmm.
I can read to inform myself about probably a particular community in which the fiction is based on a particular community. Then I could do use that to get more knowledge on them. So I think there are multiple purposes.
Right. All communication primarily falls in one or more of the following functions. One is to inform, the second is to entertain, uh, and the third is to persuade. Okay. Now, typically, the ones that are talking about to inform are not arguing for their case, which is what your reports are supposed to be, which is what media is supposed to be, not necessarily is. The one which has no agenda is to entertain. I tell a story. You don't like it, you don't like it. Someone else likes it, that's okay. I don't really have a purpose to try and give you um, truth in that sense, right? So you may, when you read Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, you may read Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park, but you also know that he has taken a lot of liberties in representing the dinosaurs, and he writes in the footnotes all the time, and even at the end notes at the back, that the truth is this, but he has taken a liberty to, give them certain fictitious and unknown characteristics. Or if you read a Harry Potter, or if you read, mm, I don't know, if you read Akbar Birbal, we don't know the truth of these. We know that they are there, and they may have a certain other purpose, which is by entertaining. They also try and teach to tell you something, or they try and persuade you about a morality of something somewhere there. But to a large extent, the job may just be to entertain. Children's books don't really always preach morals. They also just say, oh, this is a red pencil, it went to a blue pencil party's, birthday party. That's all maybe the story is. Um, so one of the fundamental functions you will have to identify when reflecting on text is, what is the function of this particular text? And if this is the function of this particular text, does it adhere to that function? So that is one of the questions that we will have to ask ourselves. I have given you a link. The link is medialit.edu. I don't know. Have I been sharing my screen? I'm sorry, I'll have to keep going back and forth, I think. Yeah. Stop. No. So if you look at this, this is the site that is given for media literacy, and I'm just using certain other things to make it a little bit more, not fiction related, but also try and tell you about contemporary advertisements and all of it. And we can look at certain ads, and I will take you through certain ads for us to analyze today. And this is this is another kind of text that you can use for your assignment. Okay, so when we say text, take a piece of writing, it could be that you're taking up a media piece of writing also. You don't have to necessarily go and search for very heavy written text. You can also take up certain other text, but it can't be only visual. I'll tell you that. Okay. But when you are doing it, and I want to take you through this for that reason, think of certain questions that you may want to look at. What is the general ambience of the advertisement? What mood does it convey, and how does it do it? And we will take you through those. I'll take you through one, question for this. But what do you understand by ambience? What do you understand by the word tone? Or what do you understand by the word mood? This is the word mood. What do you understand by that? What is tone and what is mood? Hey, what's, you guys are quiet. Is this not clear? Or is someone typing? Then I'll have to go and check that. How do you?
Can you repeat what you said?
Yes, I can, and I can also chat on the forum with you. Yes, how do you feel or read after reading or seeing it? What my question was, what is the difference uh, between tone and mood?
Ma'am, tone is kind of the pitch or the sound, how it wavers, and mode is basically the ambience or um, the pleasantness of the place or the warmth of the place in which the particular thing is happening.
Okay. Yes and no. Tone has a different other secondary meaning to it also. One of the meanings of tone is, of course, what you pointed out, which is the pitch at which you speak. But tone also has another meaning. So when we say what is the tone of the passage, we generally mean what is the author's attitude. And mood is what is the audience perceiving. Okay, so I create a mood for the audience, but the tone of the author or the character may be different. How? I can give you an example of it. Yes, it is like a type of feeling, like a happy or sad. But okay, let me think. Okay, so one of the examples that I'll give you is it. So let's take up this sentence. It was a dull, dark, gloomy day. Okay, this is the sentence. It was a dull, dark, gloomy day. What do you think will happen? Sorry, I'll have to switch it again. Yes, sorry. Ayana is typing, Ashna is typing. I'll wait for y'all. So, I remember. We get an ambience of gloominess. Yes, the mood seems to be gloomy. You feel like, oh, everything is going to be sad. So maybe in the sentence, as Ashna is typing, I'll type another. It was windy too. There was no one round as he walked up the hill. Lazy, okay. So now there is a character. It was windy, it was dull, dark, gloomy. It was also windy. And there was no one around as he walked up the hill. What do you think this person's mood will be? He will feel lonely, very good, somber. So he will
Lonely,
be
alone.
walking desperate, alone, yes. How fast would he be walking? Slow. Maybe he just wanted a little
Slow.
space. That's a good point, Ashna. Not very fast. He'll be walking slowly. Yes. And see, there is already certain things that you're imagining. You know, you're imagining this person with slightly slouched shoulders, who's put his shoulders down. Maybe he's looking down and he's walking. You know, he's not someone who would be perhaps enjoying the scenery and going. This is prediction without me telling you much, though I am, of course, eliciting the answers right now from you, but even without that, there will be an image in your mind of a man. You know, how old do you think this man is? Or can it be a child? So, how old do you think this person is? Okay, young adult, middle aged. Hmm. Teen, 45 plus. See, there's so many differences now that come up. You would also have in your mind, the physique of the character. You will not have him as, I don't think many of you will have him as too fat because he's walking up the hill. Apparently only teenagers go out in the, yeah. So these are things in your head that you are also culturally conditioned to because you are thinking of these people in this manner. Would he be an 80-year-old man walking up the hill? Did you think of someone who is 80 plus? I'm not
No.
asking could he be. I'm asking you whether you thought of him. Yeah, he could be anyone. He can be even a 2-year-old child, who knows? But the point is, what was your first imagination, right? And in your head, it is that not an 80-year-old man, not trudging up a hill on a dull, dark, gloomy day, might be someone with a lot of worries. And the people you thought of as worried people are people who are teenagers. And even when you're teenagers, you're not thinking of a 12, 13-year-old child. You're thinking of a 17, 18-year-old child. You're thinking of a young adult of 25, 30, who's not maybe got a job or something like that. You've built up a 45-year-old person in your head as someone who is got family worries and he's wandering through, who is not very fat because, why would he be walking up a hill if he is fat? So all these are kinds of things that you have already thought of and you have already imagined in your head. And you don't have a clear picture of him, but you have a kind of a silhouette. You will not be able to identify him in a lineup, but you can kind of say, ye nahi hai, In a police thing, if they bring up someone very fat and short or something, you say, nahi, nahi, ye nahi hai. So these are elements of prediction that you are doing. And these are kinds of elements that a writer is already building up for you to be taken down a pathway, right? So that is what one of the aspects of prediction deals with. This is what enables us to read faster. And this is somewhere the setting of a mood. So we start empathizing with a character. We start saying, oh, poor guy, so must be sad. In a way, you're also feeling a bit sad. And then, no problem. And then one person will write, and maybe the author goes on and says, he was walking up the hill. That was the last sentence that I said. As he walked up the hill, he was smiling to himself, chuckling as he patted the letter again and again. That was safely tucked away in his pocket. Now, what is the character's feeling?
Maybe he is remembering some kind of experience, good experience or
Good
something like that,
experience,
and
right?
he's
And we thought so much
and
and we felt so sad and sorry for this character. And now it's like emotion wasted. Is it?
yeah.
These minutes thinking, Are, isko kya hua hoga? What is his feeling? How he must be like? And now suddenly you have like, he's smiling, he's chuckling. So now what is your mood?
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
So mood is something that uh, uh, we assign to the character based on our reading, so it could change from one person to another. Is
No, in a sense that the mood is basically okay. So, just to put it in context, the tone is what the author or character's feelings or attitudes are. Okay, it's the simplest way of writing it would be that feelings or attitudes are. Let me just type this and say. And I will also share all of this in a, I mean, I'm putting this here, but I'm also trying to get you to articulate because generally, otherwise, if I'm putting it on a screen, you might just be seeing it and not thinking through. So I want you to think through in a class in that sense. So this is what the tone is. So the tone is that the author gave us two tones now. The author gave us one, the tone of what the day was. And that is what the atmosphere is. So he gave us what the atmosphere looked like, the atmosphere, the ambience, that has its own tone, right? It has a tonality of its own, which is that of somber, as you pointed out, lonely, gloomy, dark. It's really dull. You don't feel some happiness. You definitely feel it is more unhappy, very reflective, if at all, very thoughtful, but it's not something that will make you smile and be happy. So he gave us that as one of the settings statement. The setting, to a large extent, the ambience, gives the audience the mood in which they are supposed to respond. So the mood is largely what the audience feels, and I will use it to create the audience feelings. So it is primarily, how do I ensure that the audience feels in a particular way is by trying to evoke that mood in you. How will I do that? By giving you the symbols to which you will react, right? So when I say it is a dull, dark, gloomy day, you're looking at the word dull, you're looking at the word dark, you're looking at the word gloomy, and you're like, oh, sad. If I gave you the word, it was a dark night, Now, this is a very different tone because now it really depends. There will be two kinds of people. There'll be one person who looks at the word dark and says, oh, wow, finally. There'll be peace, there'll be shanti, there'll be, no one about, and that's a good thing. But there will be others who look at a dark and say, oh my God, dark, that is dangerous, and look at the word dark as a dangerous entity. So there is an ambivalence there. There is a duality there, and two different readers will read it differently. But if I give you a word like it's a dull, dark, gloomy day, I have set the context for you. No reader is going to look at dull, dark, and gloomy and look at gloomy and say, oh, gloomy means happiness. No, of course not. Gloomy does not mean happiness and it cannot mean happiness. So, that is one element of what we will be looking at in terms of how the mood is set. Then the author goes on to say that this guy was alone. And so I create that sense saying, oh, he was alone, he is walking. And your mind is thinking at like 110,000 times the amount that we are speaking, all right? So you've already set it up in your head saying he's sad, he must be alone, he is lonely. All these questions I was asking you, you've already had a thought about it earlier. Then the person says, oh, he was smiling and chuckling to himself. And you're like, kya eda hai? So there'll be someone who looks at it and says, mad guy. Someone who looks at it and says, oh, he must be such a sentimental guy. Someone who looks at it and say, oh, wow, so nice. Like he's so happy. This is such a happy atmosphere that even in the height of sadness, in the, when it is dull, dark, gloomy, windy, etc., he's still able to smile. Wow, what a nice character. One, or how much, what is this very interesting piece of news that he has that is making him smile in spite of everything around him? Now, this is, of course, going back to fiction to a certain extent, but it is something that people use in advertisement also. And I will give you one contrast to that again as an example. So, the audience now looks at this tone, two tones that the author has given us. One, the mood, the setting of the atmosphere. And second, the tone that the character has, the attitude that the character displays. So the tone is actually, if I have to do what is the tone of the passage, right? I have this passage. It was a dull, dark, gloomy day. It was, this is something that comes in all these MCQ questions, of SAT and GRE and GMAT and all of it. So what is the tone of the passage? Now you have a question that is it very positive? Is it very negative? Is it neutral? Okay, those are the 3 points. Think of a number scale, +2, 0, and -2. So -1, +1, etc. comes in there. But that's the number scale you have. It is a dull, dark, gloomy day. It was windy, and he was walking by himself up the hill. And he was smiling to himself, chuckling as he patted the letter again and again that was safely tucked away in his pocket. What is the tone of the passage? Is it positive? Is it neutral? Is it negative? Right? The entire passage is, it was a dull, dark, gloomy day. Copy, paste. It was windy too. I'm going to give this as an entire sentence. And copy, paste. So, what is the tone of this passage? Yeah, please say.
Maybe positive.
So, very good. Why do you say that? Yes, Marisa, right. Why? Based on the ending, it is positive, right? So you look at the beginning, you look at the ending, and you decide that it is positive because it ends on a positive note. But as an audience, and this was my question to you, how do you feel? Is this tone that you had when you were speaking, which was like maybe positive, kind of confused?
Yeah.
क्या होने वाला है, you know? And so that is what the difference between tone and mood is. You know, you have humor that can be a mood. And all the comedians know this very, very well. You really want to know about how to have a difference between tone and mood? Look at comedy. Comedy does this so well. You know, there'll be this one person who says, oh my God, you know what happened to me? Oh my God, can you believe what happened to me? Oh my God, can you see this? There is a chip on my nail. And you're like, what? You're shouting and screaming like this because there is a chip on your nail and that's it. Like this was supposed to be like the end of the world, and they're like, they will look at it. So yes, and a lot of humor that is created by comedians comes from this contrast, where they will use sarcasm, where they will use this contrast, where they will say, you know, uh, what is the kind of humor that they will have, which is exaggerated. Um, I had to, yeah, doctor, मुझे जाना है, मुझे अभी, you know, I need to get hospitalized immediately or something of that sort. And you would say, why? And you'd be like, मुझे सपना आया था कि मैं मरने वाली हूँ. And there is humor in the audience which is looking at it and saying and laughing about it. I guess the jokes that I'm using right now are not very sensitive based on the times, but it will really depend on how you're trying to utilize them in order to say how the mood of the audience and the tone of what the character is saying may be completely in contrast. You know, someone might say, um, uh, think of certain jokes, right? Why am I not able to recollect immediately? But any kind of a joke where they are saying, so there'll be always this one character who is exaggerating their problems. Will say, "Hi Ram, Kayamat aa gayi. It is so problematic. How can I go? मेरी नौकरी चली जाएगी, मेरे बॉस मुझ पे चिल्लाएंगे, मुझे कभी नौकरी नहीं मिलेगी, मेरा घर भी बिक जाएगा." And you're like, हुआ क्या? अरे यार मुझे चाबी नहीं मिल रही मेरे गाड़ी की and I have to go to the office and I'm getting late and I'm going to be so late. And you're like, इसके लिए तुम्हारी कयामत की पूरी की पूरी पूरा सिलसिला क्यों बता रहे थे? But that is humor. That is what a lot of these films utilize. And there's always this one character who exaggerates all the problems that they have. That is their tone. They are very serious about their problem, but our mood is of laughter. The same can happen for something else where um, the villain laughs, right? The villain always is laughing at times when he's feeling like, oh, very good, I got this done. What is your mood at that time when the villain is laughing?
Um, Discomfort.
Yes. And the mood of the audience is of sometimes fear, you know, kya hoga, or sometimes like, you know, discomfort, sometimes sheer repulsion, right? Like you're like, oh my God, how bad can you be? And so that is the contrast between tone and mood. And it's very useful sometimes to create it. Most of the time, tone and mood are sympathetic to each other. So if you read Shakespearean tragedies, you read Greek tragedies, you read newspapers nowadays, all the newspapers nowadays will tell you what tone and what mood to take. The tone of the newspaper is there is chaos and prevalent, problems. and you're like, oh, I should feel sad now. And so they will also give you all the information that is all sad. Earlier, newspapers would not give you any tone. So you didn't know what mood to take. So you had to respond to it yourself. You had to have more critical thinking, more cognition to utilize when you were reading news, because you had to think through it. Now you are responding to a trigger that the newspaper very cleverly places for you, which is there is chaos and discomfort, and you're like, oh, I'm supposed to. This is like one teacher coming in and saying, have you had this experience? I don't know whether you have had this experience. I had this in college. Once a teacher came into our class and said, the lecture is cancelled. Okay, and it was the last lecture of the day. So we were like, yay! And then the teacher for 15 minutes told us how bad we were. Pathetic students, you have no consideration. We are all here slogging for you. You don't care about learning. All you care about is enjoyment. And we were like, okay, sorry. And and another time, and this is something that I'm very careful to do nowadays, is I generally start by saying, unfortunately, students, the lecture has been cancelled. And my students know better than to start making, saying, oh, good, because they now know I have started, I have signaled to them. This is not a good thing. It's unfortunate. So even if you feel कि मन में लड्डू फूट रहे हैं, outside you are going to show a face which is like, oh, so sad. And you're supposed to be unhappy about it. And so that is going to be the statement of how you can prelude and how you can, persuade the other person to take the mood along. These are very simple strategies, and they do use them. And advertisements use them a lot. So to go back to that, this position that I showed, the general ambience of the advertisement to a certain extent is predicting how we are doing, right? Now, let me ask you a certain kind of question, because these are the 6, 7, there are a few questions out here, but some of the questions that I would like you to think about is, how do we define, and give me this as an answer, how do we, if you had to have only one picture to talk about success, okay, in an advertisement, Indian advertisement, how would you showcase success? I'll give you, how will you showcase success? So let's do an image search and show success, okay? So we'll only search for images. Now, is this an image of success? You can see my screen, right? So the one that is highlighted, is this the image of success?
No, I don't think so.
Would you consider this to be the image of success?
Awesome.
Similar image, but it has a slightly different perspective. Can this be
Not
success?
real.
Awesome.
Not really. Okay.
Not real.
Can this be success?
No.
No. This looks like
Oh.
freedom.
What can
Yeah.
it be if it is
As
not
if
success?
our start holding something like.
More
Okay.
like freedom, happy,
More like freedom. What is this?
like an achievement.
This can be success.
Because there is a raised hand and fist.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? So even with images, you have this thing. Now, I typed in success, and this was an image of success. Can this be success? This image. image?
Yes. Uh, on the road to
How
success.
many of you say yes?
Can be process.
Yeah,
Not
can
really, ma'am.
progress. This wouldn't be considered success in many people's eyes because there are so many more steps to go forward. People do not think of success as something where you need to go forward, you know. And these are, yes, so you have talked about them as stepping stones and success. Absolutely right. On that path, on the way towards success, it can be hope, yes, but you realize how in your head there is an imagination of success. And to a large extent, if I go back to my search for success, and I use it, you would want achievement of this kind. You would want people around, and in Indian things, you would talk about people around who are being successful, and none of these images will fit you in your understanding of what you believe is success. There's a very interesting aspects of how to read images, and images also speak to us, and images also tell us certain things. So when you use a certain color, it has a certain kind of reading that affects. When you bold something, it has a certain kind of impression that it leaves on the audience mind. When you highlight something, when you underline something, when you italize something, all of these have a certain kind of impression that they leave on us. And so when you're talking about an advertisement or anything of that sort of reading, you're also trying to see what is it that how are the cultural symbols of success used? To give you a very simple example, and this is one of my favorites, but if I take up I mean, alcohol is now the big thing nowadays, especially in the last 2 days of sales. But if I give you a sense of a man sitting all by himself, drinking alcohol, okay, would you consider this man happy or unhappy?
Unhappy.
Now place this man in UK in his own castle drinking. Uh, would that be happy or unhappy?
Still unhappy.
But
Unhappy.
yes and no. But this is where cultural premises come in. Yes, Ayana, because the most important British saying, one of the very important British sayings, is that a man's home is his own castle. And men in, and you can go online and search for online, alcohol advertisements of this kind, and you will find a man by himself. Sorry, let me do this. Advertisement, alcohol, UK. Okay, and let's try images. You will have someone who is sitting by himself and drinking. You won't have social drinking. You will have someone who sits by himself or stands by himself and he's drinking. These are actual advertisements. And these are advertisements that they were using. And even smoking, yes, absolutely. Even smoking. They actually enjoyed by being themselves. This is a very rare advertisement, which is more recent. The earlier ads would have a lot of persons just sitting by themselves and sipping a malt by themselves, maximum with one woman. But for us, in terms of success, because we are Indians, a man who is sitting by himself and drinking is a likely suicide case. He's a potential for suicides. We need to get on a helpline and immediately get him help because अकेले अकेले कौन पीता है जो शराबी होता है या जो बहुत दुखी है. And you have to think through these kinds of elements to see how they set up a mood and a tone, but it is also a mood and a tone that is dictated. The tone is actually there for the character is feeling happy or sad, whatever. But as an audience, you feel the mood based on your own personality and based on your culture. You know, if you say, let's see this. How many of you, yeah, there is a prestige in drinking by himself. There is a freedom in drinking by himself. Many things are there. But how many of you, let me ask you this question, feel that the social distancing that we are now in this lockdown is a good thing? It's nice to be not traveling, not meeting people. Acha hai. How many of you feel that? Yeah, Shian, okay. Good thing. Wonderful. So many of you. All right. For a short period, okay. Yeah. Not fully supporting. No, no, not all of us. For a while, yes, and things. But I was just talking to my cousin's daughter yesterday, and she is enjoying herself because she's an introvert. And so she does not like going out and talking to new people. And she's like, I don't have to meet all these people I don't like and be nice to them and stuff like that. So, yeah, there are some of you who feel it's a good thing. So, now if I show you, and this is an important aspect, if we say that someone, she was not, not she, but they were not allowed to go out for many days. And it was a tragedy. And there will be some of you who are enjoying this lockdown, and you're like, अच्छा है ना इसमें tragedy क्या है? So your mood does not become simpatico with the what the author is trying to say. The author is saying it was a tragedy, and you're like, not really, it's okay, I think, to stay at home. It's not like the worst thing that can happen to you. And so all these protesters who are saying, oh, we must be allowed to go out or something, and you're like, I don't get what you're trying to say. So you're not simpatico. You are not going to have the same thought. And so the mood does not generate in you the same kind of reaction. And so you're always going to be critical. Now, why is it important to have you in sympathy with the characters or whatever? Is because then you will be less critical. We are always less critical of people we like, of people we are in sympathy with, even if we don't always understand them, if we are in sympathy with them. So we may not always agree with our parents, but because we are simpatico, we will not really like to criticize them. We won't see them in a very critical light as such. We will try and defend them. Yes, people who are finding it very difficult are extroverts who are almost in withdrawal symptoms, they are struggling. And so it's difficult for some of them to really be in this kind of a lockdown. And they're finding all kinds of ways to socialize. So these are important elements to keep in mind when one is reading and reflecting on text, because our culture, our personality, all of these affect how we read the text, right? Simple words. I've just used very simple examples to try and give you these as what you would look at. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, what do we do in terms of reading and reflecting on text? Is let's take up any one advertisement. Okay, I don't want to destroy this. Take up an ad. I'm not promoting any ad, okay? I'm just giving it to you as an example of what could be. Let's take up this one. Right. So this is the ad. It's a very simple ad. No, you will not be able to reflect on and respond to an only ad, all right? It should have some text. So, but I want you to start thinking about it from these angles for that assignment that I have given you. What does the image say? What are the five points that this ad is making? That if you can read the ad. Let me see if I can make the screen in this way. Yeah, I think you can read it now better. What are the 5 or 6 things? There are quite a few things, but give me 5 things that the ad is saying. You don't have to read the fine print.
You should use this shampoo for longer,
Are they
better,
saying
stronger
that?
hair.
Are they saying we should use the shampoo?
Like
It
by
implies that
looking
the
at the
shampoo will help in
Implies,
getting.
yeah. It implies
yeah,
yes, but does it say it?
No, it just implies by the ad itself.
Right. Hair will grow longer, stronger, and better. Yes, Ayana. And how are they showing it? So it says longer, stronger, better. That is definitely there. How have they managed to say that?
That the plait of the girl.
Yes. The plait of the girl is long, very, very long. It's 5 times stronger.
It's
Yes,
also
that's also
thicker.
one. It's very thick. It's she is very thin and the plait is unusually thick for her. Yes. Anything else?
I don't know if I'm correct, but that girls look beautiful with long and strong hair, maybe thick hair.
Mm, they have not said that in the advertisement. I mean, some of these are, of course, implications that can come about. Is this girl classically beautiful? There is a shine in her hair. Yes. Is this girl
I
classically
feel
beautiful? Yeah,
she
there
is
is an
more
attitude
confident.
on her face. She's very confident. There is an attitude in her face, as someone pointed out. She has got a very strong jaw. If you look at it, it's not a narrow jaw. She's exactly, she is as if it's pulling it with a rope. You know that tug of war, the tie tag things that you have. If you look at it, it is looped around her right hand very subtly. And that seems to be more like she's pulling the Garnier towards her and, things like that and focused on it. There is a strength. The kind of dress that she's wearing, what kind of dress is it?
It's a gym outfit. Looks like that.
It, yeah, it looks more
gym
like a
or
exercise
sporty.
outfit, right? Very sporty outfit. It has multiple colors in it and stuff like that. Yes. And if you notice all of these very subtly, through every kind of image reaction, they have tried to underline for you that it is longer, stronger, and better. They have tried to do that. There is also this thing that it is called Garnier fructix. So, how have they tried to tell you that it is a fruit based thing?
The background of the
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. So, and 5 times longer, stronger hair, they have, instead of also not just making it stronger, they have tried to just ensure that it is a very, very long hair and exaggerated aspects. They have exaggerated the bottle's length and breadth, all of it. So, if you notice these aspects of how subtly you can have reiteration of the ad. For instance, if I'm looking at this one and I look at the earlier ad, will this be an ad for longer, stronger? Can this be an ad for longer and stronger?
Stronger maybe, but not longer.
Strong, can it be for strong?
Yeah, by looking at her flat,
Not
it's
really.
No. Thick, thick, yes. Strong, no. She doesn't give you that, she doesn't give you the sense of it being thick. I mean, strong. She gives you a sense of it being thick, yes. But strong, no. She looks delicate. She looks, she's smiling. She's got a sleeker, strong bone. And it is only about caring. It doesn't give you the impression of it being things. Advertisers pay a lot of attention to such things. She's wearing a more delicate dress. She's not wearing a sporty dress. Very simple aspects. She has a freshness to her. And why is this white given and why is she given in this manner? Because they want to give a sense of freshness. What I'm giving you are things that advertisers actually pay attention to. This, on the other hand, can be a stronger hair, not necessarily long, but definitely strong hair. It also is for certain other things of set it straight, but they're trying to give it a kind of attitude that comes in. Do you see how very subtly with certain kinds of images they try and bias you in a way to believing something or reiterate the message through so many devices? Advertisements do that all the time. Advertisements have a lot of ways that they can work with biases, and it is a good thing and a bad thing. Okay, now I can my purpose as an advertiser is to sell a product to you. If that means I will cater to your biases, I think that is okay. So take up an ad like Move. Um I'm not going to show this to you. Uh, can you think of what Move ad does? Move or Volany? Can you give any one advertisement that you remember of these? Yeah, any
they
pain
are
relief, but
related something
primarily
to do
pain relief.
with pain.
Yeah. No, but can you
Pain.
remember any ad of theirs?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
There's
say,
this
give me an ad.
th-
Hmm?
there's this one ad wherein the child throws the slipper on the rooftop, and the mother tries to
Mm-hmm.
take it off, and then she gets a backache. So then
Mm-hmm.
the mother-in-law says that you apply Move, and after that the child keeps doing it so that he doesn't have to go to school. But once his mom applies Move, he can go to school, and she could remove the slipper off the roof. That's one ad.
Right. Then there are these, that is one ad. Then I can, I'm not going to show you the ad, but if you look at this ad, you remember that this ad was basically an ad where they were playing Pakda Pakdi and then she was doing all the housework, and or there is this ad where she does all the housework and she's got a backache, and the husband very lovingly applies the Move, and then she goes back to doing housework. What does this ad say? About how loving husbands are? Or the child is doing it. Yes, she feels better by applying Move, and generally it's always the mother, the ideal daughter-in-law. By the way, Move is not used using any single woman or anything like that. It is always using a housewife kind of a scenario. That the pain will go away in a minute, which is not really true. True. It also shows you that it is giving such wrong images, isn't it? Like when you have got a backache or when you have an ankle ache or something, you're supposed to rest. You're not just supposed to go back to, exercising and going back to your regular work. You're supposed to actually rest. Any doctor will tell you that. But of course, the product wants to sell its product. This is for those who are doing a lot of work. Yes. It also is catering to a very singular prejudice. It is that the the woman, it is so, for instance, there's this other Crows and pain relief ad also, the headache pill, where the woman is getting a very bad headache, and the man goes and finds in a drawer, searches for something, and then he gets a crocin and he gives it to her, and she smiles at him and she goes back to work. And you're looking and saying, you could have done all the work that she was doing, right? Like, what was so loving and affectionate about getting a crocin pill for her? She is, yes. And it is always that, it is not that the woman can rest. It is like, you'll go back to work. So there is another ad of the woman carrying the bag, and the boy, and she is getting a backache, and the child tells her father, she's got a backache, and he gets her move, and she continues carrying the bag, and you're like, but the idea could have been that the father could have carried the bag. It should not have been. So what are they trying to do with it? And is this a bad thing? So one important aspect in this element is that the advertiser is not trying to change your opinion. The advertiser is trying to persuade you to buy move. Okay. And you may have 110 problems with it. But the purpose of the ad was to sell the product. And the purpose of the ad is solved because the product is selling it to you by playing on the kind of existing biases you have, and it says, हाँ ऐसा चलता रहेगा, चलने के लिए ये करते रहो. Buy your product, you have a backache, you want to work, buy this product, use it, and you can continue working. It's not a great message to give, and that is okay. But the purpose of the message was not to anyway change your opinion. It was to buy the product. So they succeeded. So they are good. And so, yes, it depends on the culture. Yes, Ayana, absolutely depends on the culture. The Tide, the rinso pads, all of it depends on the culture. Absolutely. But when you're reading a text, and it could be any text, when we talk of text, it doesn't always have to be a very dense text. So I've tried to bring in all these other cultural artifacts to let you know how you can be reading text and saying that this is a cultural aspect. And it is a personality aspect as well. It's not just only about culture. It's also about how we personally, what our own character, what our own opinion, what our own built-in biases have. So there may be times when, as a 20-year-old, you enjoyed a film, and as a 30-year-old, you're looking at it and saying, oh my God, this is so sexist. This is so racist. This is so bad. Or you may have really hated a film as a 20-year-old, and as a 30-year-old, you may end up liking it. So we also change as readers. And there is a person whose name is Wolfgang Iser, and he talks of the aspects of the reading. And what he says is that it is like reading gives you these stars, okay? And they are like dots. And how you connect those dots are up to you as a reader. So every time you're going into a reading, you are kind of building an idea, building a worldview along with the writer. The writer is guiding you. And sometimes you choose to go along with the writer, and sometimes you choose to question the writer. So there are times when, okay, let me ask you this. Do you like Rohit Shetty movies?
Yes, ma'am.
You like them?
Yes,
No,
ma'am.
Ashna
Golmaal
doesn't like
written.
them. Yeah. Why don't you like them, Ashna? Deepali also doesn't like. So Deepali, why don't you like? They're too extreme. So I'll tell you how you will be reading that text. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, please. Whoever wants to speak. Yes. No. So quite a few more people. So the way you will be reading that text, in that sense of reading, is to, ye ho hi nahi sakta. This is so wrong. This is so untrue. This is so unreal. How can this guy be jumping up this kind of a cliff? Ye kahan se aa gaya? So you're constantly questioning. You're not ready to believe anything that this director is putting up in front of you. And you're going to be constantly questioning how this came to be. Like how when you read these wonderful Hindi serials where a woman suddenly becomes some housefly, and you're like, ये हो ही नहीं सकता. And then there are other people who are, yeah, but she does, right? But there are other people who are looking at it and saying, अरे वो housefly बन गई. अरे हाँ हमें पता है कहानी है, but it is कहानी है ना, तो तुम्हें क्यों वहाँ पे, why do you want realism there? And we are looking at it and saying, how can you even watch a serial that has a woman turning into a housefly? Like, what is this nonsense happening? How are you watching this serial, right? All Ekta Kapoor serials, or a snake, yes. So you know that, right? And this is where our suspension of disbelief, okay? I promise I will put up all of this up for you as things, but this is where the suspension of disbelief comes in, where as a viewer, as a reader, I choose to believe, to engage in the world that you construct for me. I choose to follow the clues you give me and not question you all the time. I like certain writing because I will be able to immerse myself in it quicker, better, than if you didn't tell me that. So some of us like romantic stories. Some of our friends who don't like romantic stories look at us and say, "Aisa hota hai kya? What is this nonsense that you're reading?" So they also dismiss what we are reading. And we know that it is fiction, but we choose to believe in it. Yeah. So, yes, you like the comedy. Again, some of the comedy is also very, it's difficult to believe. And so, but we choose to, for that period of time, we choose to give it the benefit of doubt. We choose to allow our suspension, to suspend our disbelief in that sense, to be less critical. Now, the point is, you can do all of this for certain aspects. So, in terms of critical thinking, when I want to be entertained, I can suspend my view, right? When I want to be entertained, I perhaps may want to suspend my way of critical and be less logical, the logic of it, and say, ठीक है, for this period of time, this works. But if I want to be informed, and if I'm reading a news report or I'm reading research, then I need to be very critically aware. I need to be very sharp. And I need to constantly question and re-question what is happening. And in that sense, that is one aspect of reflecting on the reading is the audience aware? What kind of audience are they writing to? Is this good? Have they justified it? What are the principles of justification they have used? So how can I justify my thought of? So if I want to be informed, I need to have critical thinking. Right? I should utilize critical thinking. If I want to utilize critical thinking, that means as a writer, you need to justify what are the mechanisms, what are the methods used to justify a point of view. Can you, let's take up this. It's a Ghisa-Pita idea, but I'm just giving you this. This is the idea. The lockdown is a very good idea. I want to justify the statement. How do I justify it? I can debate, yes. But how do I justify the statement? The lockdown is a very good idea. I want to justify it. Can you give me two, each one of you just type?
By
Yeah, all right. Speak up,
telling
yes.
all positive, all positive aspects of lockdown, like saving
Is it enough
life
to
So
or
we can break the
yeah.
chain and we can break the chain and stay stay at our home. So lockdown is a very good idea.
So when you're saying Ashna and Ayana have given 2 points, one is saving lives and the other is people have come closer to their families. Is it enough to just say people have come closer to the families, so lockdown is a very good idea? Marisa has said something, cite researchers. So when you're citing researchers, it means that I am quoting someone who has already done work. And that is a very good strategy to justify. You know, we use this very often. मेरी teacher बोलती है, if we wanted to get something done with our parents, we would quote our teacher. When we want to go and get something done with our you know, if you want to persuade your one sibling or someone, then you would just say our parents have agreed to this. So quote statistics, yes. People, no spreading of virus. People have come closer to. You can give. So one is, of course, you give statistics, right? You may give statistics. The other, you may use quotes of reliable authorities, right? That is one other way of justifying. You may also give anecdotal references, examples, like how I have come close to my family. Like that, I know of two, three others who have come close to the family. And I give an example of how we never spoke, but now we all sit and have dinner every night together, or something like that. You know, emotionally engage. Absolutely. So the first two were logos, which is thought. Okay, I mean, there is a better, fancier Greek name for it. The other is pathos, which is emotion, how you feel about it. So you can try and engage people's emotion and say, do you want people to die? What happens to the next generation? And stuff like that. And you can talk about, yes, you can try and do the emotional blackmailing of nurses and doctors are doing so much. How can you, make whatever their sacrifices are, destroy it? How can you do that? And so there are some negative aspects to it. Of course, there are, Akansha. There is nothing, no denying it. I am talking of not the lockdown. I just use the lockdown as an example, but I'm talking of the the ways and means through which we argue our point, the way and means through which we give information, but we not only give information, if we want to persuade people who are critically thinking, how do we persuade them? I gave you an example of an advertisement that is not supposed to engage your critical thinking faculty. Advertisements are not supposed to do that. Advertisements are not supposed to make you feel, oh, to hum sochte hain. Most advertisements are not supposed to do that. Some advertisements are doing that. For instance, if you look at the Vicks ad of the transgender mother, it was a very clever way of, repositioning motherhood altogether. It made the mother be a transgender, which in most of our imagination is not possible. So you can utilize, so advertisements of a persuasive nature have a different function. But if I'm a researcher, and many of you are researchers, you're educators, you're trying to inform people, but along with informing people, you're also asking them to critically think, reflect, and you're trying to get them to agree with what you're saying. So what are the features of you getting people to agree with what you're saying? One is quote statistics. The other is to give, to give quotes of reliable authorities. The third is to cite certain examples, like ethnographic research will have examples after examples after examples given. The there can be, but very rarely in academic research, be an appeal to ethos, which is the one that talks about moral right, right? So there is very rarely this, that there is a moral duty, a moral responsibility to do the right thing. Again, ethos is assuming that morality is something that we all agree with. A question here that I will pose. Should a misbehaving child be slapped by its parent? This is a question for you. Oh, you can also speak up. It's if some of you are typing, some of you can also speak. Okay, Shian, no, yes. Okay, I can't hear whoever else is trying to not slap. Ayana, does that mean shout is okay? No? Okay, all right. I have another question related to this. Should the parent who slaps the child, okay, have the child taken away from them? So, if a parent slaps a child, should the child be taken away from the parent? No. Okay. All right. If they're found to be abusive, yes. No, they're slapped. I mean, it's a slap for a misbehavior, you know, not abusive, which is again, this is very interesting, isn't it? Is slap not abuse? Is a question, Marisa. And the problem is, culturally, we are all Indians. We don't think slap is abuse. We think it is wrong. But we don't think one slap is enough for the parent to have the child taken away. Did you guys watch Thappad, the film? Yes. So, did you have conversations with others? Yeah. Did you have conversations with others which said, "Ek hi to thappad mara"? That's not okay. So, is a parent slapping a child okay? See, I'm asking you this question because this is where reading comes in, right? So the woman is slapped by her husband, and I'm not revealing the storyline in any way, but the woman is slapped by her husband, and she, of course, is, I mean, the trailer is very clear in telling you that she seems to decide to walk away, right? And you're like, huh, some of us are like, very good. And some of us are like, maybe not one. For was it only one time? Was he abusive? And this is a question that Marisa was asking, not if they're abusive, if they're abusive parents, take away the child. And this is a question, is one slap abusive or is it not? And that is a question that comes through, right? Now, in America, in Canada, if a parent slaps a child, you know that the child will be taken into Social Security. You know this. And that is our entire premise of cultural ethos. When we say, when I go back into reading a text and I'm reading it and it says, this person slapped a child, I have to think as an American, I might be like, oh my God, this is like the worst crime ever. As an Indian, I would be like, so sad. Should not have beaten. And then I go ahead and read. That's it. Difference, no, in how I and you, how I as an Indian and how someone else as an American might react to that same story, so that same incident. Yeah, Ayana, what have you heard? I'll just wait for you to type in and then I'll. Yes, this is a difference in culture. Absolutely. What happens abroad? Yes. So some countries, there's a very famous example of a Denmark person leaving her child outside and walking into a restaurant, and she was arrested in UK for that. But in her culture, in her country, you're allowed to leave the child outside because then you won't disturb the other diners. And in India, you can't imagine doing that. So it will be based on personal experience, it will be based on culture. But I'm going to go back to something that I had earlier said is ethos as a moral responsibility. Moral responsibility is presuming certain things. In India, the moral responsibility of what people assume, right? Like the teacher, the school bus driver, the conductor, the neighborhood auntie, that shopkeeper in your neighborhood, all assume that children are our responsibility. And so sometimes they tweak the child's ears. Sometimes they shout at a child who is not their own. And they say, no, how can you climb up the tree? They don't go to the parent and complain only. They also correct the child right then and there. Now, when I'm reading this, when I'm talking about this, how do I reflect and give that information of the background? Who is my reader? What does that happen? How can I give these examples so that they understand cultural understandings of nuances without me trying to explain everything to them? These are parts of reading and reflecting on text. This is a part of what goes into your writing of the text. And they're not very easy to do, but these are aspects, right? And as I was saying, they're not always, we won't always react to them in the same manner. And so it's all right to take a text and try and read them in different ways, um, as long as you have justification for your reading, it is fine. How does this connect to your assignment? To connect to your assignment, I'm just going to go to any one passage, okay? What we did with the newspaper as such. I'm going to take up any one thing, importance of reading. Let's take up one of the first articles that comes in. I have other articles, but I don't want to get into that in the sense. So I'm also putting it up in the chat in case some of you want to read it in a better screen resolution, right? So that's why I just thought I'll share it with you. But this is an importance of reading article. And they have identified some elements of reading, okay? Now, I think you should be able to see this part, to read the second paragraph, like from here as part of till here, initiatives. Just read this and tell me how will you analyze this piece of writing? For those who want to read it as a text, I'm pasting it here because it allows me to. But just this kind of a text, what does it tell me about the reading? give 3 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't give you any break today. I'll try and wind up a bit early if that is the case. Have you finished reading this?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. I have some questions to ask you, even if you're not able to, do that. I have certain questions to ask you. On that. Just read. Take your time. I'll give you 2 minutes more. Okay. Uh, can you tell me what is the purpose of the text then? The text is an information. Yeah. So the text is basically to inform. Who is the audience?
Parents.
How do you know this?
Because they have asked about, means they are explained about the reading new strategy they are using in their school. So what they are, or it can be not only the parents or the present parents of the students, it can also be those who are seeking admission in that school, any like that. How the
Why do
reading,
you think, and yeah, why do you think that it cannot be school management or education administration?
yeah, that is also can be.
Because they, at no point have they said that, uh, that we will inform you as the parents. Have they said that?
Yeah.
Right? They have said as part of our curriculum review at NIASAC and NISAC, we have identified reading as a key area for development and will be included in the school strategic development plan. The busy timetable, teachers currently do not have enough time to listen to their children read as much as they would like to. That's it. From today, we have made some adjustments to the start of the day, blah, blah, blah. It goes on, right? At no point does it seem to say that it is only parents, right? So
Yeah.
that
It can also be
is
like
where,
reporting.
yes, it could be like a reporting. It could be that we are kind of updating the general audience or anything. But because we think for us in all our heads, right, this is where our own cultural personal biases come in. Because we think the trio is the triumvirate of school education is who for us? Teachers, children, parents. And so we thought that the third angle to banna chahiye, which is parents. And but the text itself does not say that. So each time that you're asking this question, what is the purpose of this text? How do you know that the purpose of the text is to inform? Where is the line that says that it is to inform? Can you give me that?
There is no.
No, read the last sentence.
We will continue update. Yeah.
Isn't update a word that is used to basically say inform?
Yes.
So when you are doing this, and this is to go back to what I asked you to do in the last exercise, just see how we are doing it. And I'm giving this as an element of exercise for you. See how, where are the words coming in which enable you to think about how there is an impression that you are getting, right? You're getting an impression of we would like to update you. So you, from that, you subconsciously gathered that this is an informational piece. It gives you a chronology of what they did, what they are doing, what they will do. And that kind of chronology is very factual. So it again gives you a sense that it is informational and not persuasive. Have they used adjectives which are emotional adjectives? Have they used any emotional adjectives? This will motivate and enthuse and make them excited or anything like that. Have they used any such things? Have they said sadly, unfortunately, anything like that? No. Other than the hopefulness of, with further reading initiatives, and hopefully this will prove impactful and will accelerate reading progress across primary school, these are generally impact and acceleration, etc., are also considered to be words which are verifiable. Okay, I can verify it, I can have a measurement for it, and I can measure it. But if I'm saying enthused or unfortunate or sad, that's very thing. So typically, because there is an absence of appeal to pathos, to emotion, it is very, very factual. We again get the sense that it is informative. We get the sense that the audience is perhaps parents and perhaps educational administration, but primarily actually can be anyone interested, because they have not really talked about parents in the text. Okay, so these are elements that you can talk about. Is this easy to understand? Is this passage fairly easy to understand? Okay, why do you think it is easy to understand? Correct, absolutely. Simple vocabulary. Like, can you give an example of easy language, no complicated technical terms? So absence of technical terms is also a very good judgment to make. what are the easy words? For instance, easy words like start their day, support assistant or buddy, something like that. They seem to have used very simple vocabulary. Are the sentences short? Language is easy. But again, when you say language is easy, don't just say that. Please give examples. So go back to a sentence that you particularly found easy and give a quote from there. Okay. And so, for instance, it could be that uh, with a busy timetable, teachers currently do not have enough time to listen to their children as much as they would like to, right? It could be that sentence, or you could find some other sentence. It is also easy to read because it is chronological. It is organized in a sequence, and you're able to follow the logic of that sequence. So that is another reason why it is easy, right? But yes, generally it is. Is it easy because you also like this kind of writing? Will it be easy for everyone, or is it easy for you?
I think those who are from the
Some may find it difficult. Correct, Ashna. They may. Depends on what type of reading. I like yes. So because you're very used to this kind of reading, you may find it easier. If there are long sentences in this passage, if you look at some of it in terms of the passage, this requires someone to be fairly comfortable with English. It is not that easy because there are complex sentences. Just read the first sentence. As part of our curriculum review at NIASAC, we have identified reading as a key area for development and will be included in the school strategic development plan. And you're like, yeah, that's fine. That's easy. That's easy for you because you've been reading something like this. I can break this up into 3 short sentences. We've had a curriculum review at NIASA. In this, we have identified reading as a key area for development, full stop. And therefore, the reading will be included in the school strategic development plan. It can be made much easier. It is 3 short, simple standalone sentences that have been combined. So it is kudos to you guys. You are very good at reading that you're able to follow this long sentence. And that is the other element that comes in. Okay, and school gives, yes, what is the impression that you get of the school is that it gives importance to overall development. It is reviewing. It seems to be a good school. It seems to have certain characteristics of a good school. You seem to like the school, right? What is and this is my final question for you, what is the tone of the passage? Correct. It is hopeful because it communicates it in the last 2 sentences. It is saying we hope it will prove impactful and it will have achievement. So it is positive. Is the passage conversational or academic? Is this very academic? It is related to academic, but is the passage itself, the way that this paragraph is constructed? No, there is a difference. Is the I'll give you the way that the passage could be. Does a lot of academic writing, okay, would academic, let me just ask you this question. Would academic writing end with, we will update you over the coming term with further reading initiatives? This last sentence, would that be in academic writing? No. Right? So it is not, while it uses some elements of academia, it is not exactly the way academic writing will be written. Academic writing would have this study is ongoing and the work in progress will have periodic updates given as we come across new evidence, right? But we will continue to update you. You coming into that sentence makes it conversational, not academic. Okay. So what you have to do in your piece of writing analysis, which was the last class, what we did on Saturday, what I was asking you to do, is identify any such passage, not advertisements, please. I just gave you advertisements as a fun way of looking at things. You can have infographics in your text. You can definitely analyze them as well. But take any one piece of writing in this manner, deconstruct it. Tell us what it is talking about. Of course, you have to summarize it. I'm sorry you have to do that. But you also have to say who is the audience, what is being spoken, give evidence for the tone, and in a way do what we have done today. Is this okay? Are you clear? If you have doubts, please ask now, and also please type in the Google documents so that we can be clear, because the next class, which is tomorrow, I'm going to take forward from here, but now I'm going to focus on not analysis, but on writing. So I would like you to have a very clear idea of it. And I will know then tomorrow to continue with this or to move ahead with how you can write in a different manner. Clear? Okay. I'm assuming if others don't have doubts, then it's clear. I am so thankful to all of you for staying on for the entire 2 hours without a break. I am so sorry, I forgot completely. Or at least I hope there was no message that told me that it should be there. But thank you very much. And I will take this call and I will definitely upload this also there. Thanks. Okay. So now that you have a fair understanding of what this assignment was, the last assignment that you will have of this course, which is writing, I will start with tomorrow, and I will try and give you something of modeling to do. So it will be similar to this class, but it will be to construct rather than to deconstruct. Today was to deconstruct, to see how it is. Tomorrow it will be to construct. Okay. Yes, I'll put the pointers on the classroom as a reference. I will put this entire video, and I was typing in all of this. I will take all of this and put it up as a reference also. Yes. Yeah. And if you have other doubts, please ask on the classroom so that I know to respond to it. Please feel free to ask in front of, either ask me personally or ask in the group chat, and I will try and respond in the group. But because I think if you have asked a question, I'm assuming there will be 2 other people with the same question. So I generally respond to it in the group. Okay. All right. Thank you. Please, yes, do get back. Yes. All right. Chalo, I'll see you. I'll end the call now. And thank you all.